But Newcastle, the roar of the crowd, Sandro Tonali's first goal, all came together really well for them, didn't it? And Alexander Isak as well played sublimely. Some of his goals were perfect, weren't they? They were so good to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really strange game, actually, to be honest. That I don't feel like the score reflected the flow of the game. I mean, if you look at the stats, there's very little between them. I think the main one for me is that Villa were quite wasteful. They didn't have many shots on target compared to how many shots they did take. But Newcastle were just ruthless. And how many times did we say that last season? It was great to see Tonali obviously slot in there, and he looks right at home. I know there's been a lot of banter from some fans saying he doesn't want to be here, he doesn't want to be at the club, but the fans are loving him, and he slotted straight into that role really nicely. And I think it was just the intensity, to be honest. The first two goals, I think that was pretty much their first two chances.
I feel like it was a frantic pace from Newcastle, wasn't it? From the kickoff, I feel like they had that extra energy that surprised me, and I think probably caught Villa off guard to an extent. But the goals were gifted to them, some of them, weren't they, by Villa? And Myles, I'll go on to you next for this one. 5-1 was a big score, wasn't it? But it was very flattering on Newcastle. What went wrong for Villa, mate?
I'm not sure I would use the word flattering, because as wasteful as Villa were at the back at times, Newcastle capitalised with really good football. I actually thought they played really, really well. And up front in particular, Anthony Gordon was absolutely excellent. It was the best I've seen him for Newcastle. And Harvey Barnes came on and was just like for like, did exactly the same thing. You can say the same for Isak and Wilson as well. Isak was unplayable. The Villa defenders really struggled with him. And actually, when Wilson came on, he got himself into the same sort of positions and got a goal for himself as well. So as much as I'm the same as Dave, I looked at the stats and was really surprised from this game, because actually, Newcastle had 53% possession at home, and that's pretty even. They had 17 shots on goal. Villa had 16. It was a bit neck and neck, and it felt a bit like a boxing match in the first half. But if it was a boxing match in the first half, in the second half, it was a slaughter, because Newcastle were just far more prepared for the game, it felt. And obviously, there were a few things that derailed Villa, and particularly defensively. So if I look at the Villa side of things and where it went wrong, there's an obvious moment. Tyrone Mings' injury is huge. We know that Villa really struggle without Tyrone Mings. I think last season we won 2 games out of 12 without him, which is... it's a massive sign of where our defence is at without him, because he brings so much. And I've been saying for so long that actually neutrals really underrate Tyrone Mings and what he brings to Aston Villa. And you saw it in this game, particularly with the style that Emery wants to play now with that high defensive line. Mings is really, really key, because he has the most recovery pace out of any of our defenders. He's always the one to be getting back and chasing a lost cause. And when you bring in someone like Pau Torres in, who's more of a ball-playing centre-back, a high line is going to be more difficult for him to play, and the defensive element. Now, if we win the ball in midfield and Torres is high up the pitch, that's perfect. But in this game, Kamara and Luiz really struggled to win the ball back for us. Kamara had one of his worst games I've seen, and Luiz picked up a really early yellow card and then just looked nervous for the rest of the game. So defensively, our shape completely went out the window when Mings went off injured. Not to make excuses, but it was a much tighter game at that point in particular.
I think Newcastle, to their credit, did set up to almost force those errors. You could see the intensity really made that a very difficult system to play, and they capitalised through just being very clinical, didn't they? And the kind of epitome of that, Dave, was Alexander Isak. He's so composed in front of goal, isn't he? And you were saying the way he capitalised on the mistake from Konsa and finished beautifully for that second goal. He just seems so calm and confident in front of goal. And we're going to see a full season of him now, hopefully, barring any injury problems. And I'm excited to see how he progresses. He's a great footballer, isn't he?
He almost slows time down when he's, his composure in front of goal. It just seems so natural and easy to him. They've got an absolute superstar on their hands, Newcastle. And the good thing is, I mean, obviously you look at Newcastle at the minute, they're obviously on the rise. Why would you want to leave? That's the main thing for me. I think they can keep hold of him for a very long time, and that's a massive positive for them. I think Harvey Barnes getting off the mark was a real boost for him as well on his debut.
He always scores against Villa. It was a free hit bringing him off the bench.
He scored in pre-season as well, didn't he? Against Villa.
Yeah. As soon as I looked at the lineup, I went, well, at least Barnes isn't playing. He come off the bench, thought, oh, there you go. There's another guaranteed goal.
But
isn't it mad though with Harvey Barnes though how much of a difference and a departure that is from Alan Saint-Maximin, because he looks for goal, he goes for goal, and he's got that end product. He was brilliant as well, really, wasn't he?
We've seen that finish from him so many times for Leicester as well. But I feel like it's a really good signing for Newcastle because they need goals from elsewhere. They can't be relying on just Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak.
Well, they got plenty on this game, didn't they? But the other kind of player I was going to call out was Sandro Tonali. So we got that early goal, which obviously settled his nerves and did into the crowd early on. Got the crowd pumped as well. So, Myles, how do you think he settled into that Newcastle system? Did he play where you expected him to, and did he provide what you thought he might?
Yeah, he played more like I think we saw him at Milan. So not necessarily what people have expected him to be for Newcastle or what Newcastle fans might have thought he was being brought in to be. But he was a lot more progressive up the pitch. And that's something that he's more than capable of doing. I think from a Villa fan's point of view, it was frustrating because I watched us play them in pre-season and McGinn just had the run of him the entire game. They stuck him on him and then he couldn't control the pace of the game. And then in this game, the lineup that Villa chose meant that McGinn couldn't do that, and Tonali had the freedom of the pitch for most of it because Luiz and Kamara just weren't getting close to him. Yeah, I thought he was excellent. Him and Guimaraes look like they've already formed quite a good central midfield bond, which will be massive for Newcastle. And if they can keep them both fit for the season, that's one of the best midfield pairings we'll see in the league. It's funny because we all kind of talked about Newcastle in our predictions, and all of us will say quite openly we think they're a fantastic team, really well coached, and will do well. But with the distraction of the Champions League, we don't expect them to do as well in the league this year. I've not changed my mind based on this result because this is the first game of the season before they've got into Europe and really got the tighter fixture schedule. But it did show that actually they're really up for this. And two teams that we've kind of put on a similar-ish level with Newcastle slightly higher right now, you wouldn't expect a result this wide. And Tonali was a huge part of that. And to be honest, all of their recent recruitment was. So it's nice for Newcastle fans to see that even the signings they made last season that we didn't see enough of were coming good in this game. I thought Anthony Gordon was unplayable at times. I thought he was excellent.